Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. I want to welcome you all to the first History for Lunch program of 2024. If you haven't yet, be sure to grab our newest program calendar out in the lobby that has a lot of programs through April. We have two more this month that I want to mention. We'll celebrate Jazz Master Max Roach's 100th birthday on Wednesday, January 10th at 6 p.m. That'll be an evening of jazz and reflections on his life and accomplishments. And then the next History for Lunch is scheduled for Wednesday, January 17th at noon, featuring Dr. Robert Smith of Mid-Atlantic Christian University. He's going to discuss how water has been used in Christian structures throughout the centuries, including through his archaeological excavations in the ancient city of Avila. So we hope that y'all will join us for both of those presentations later this month. Now today we welcome Dawson Tyler and Herr of Down East Preservation, who will discuss the comeback story that is the Kadesh A.M.E. Zion Church in Edenton, including the important place that the church occupies in the town's history and how the church came to be restored. They're joined by Sadie Riddick, who is a member of the congregation and also the chair of its restoration committee. She's going to focus on the church's future role in the town. So please join me in welcoming today's speakers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I've heard a few of you out there are suffering through a cold as well. So if y'all please excuse me, I've got that same condition going on, but on the up and up at this point, luckily. So I think we'll get through this all right. Really looking forward today to talking with you about one of the most important preservation projects that I certainly have been a part of, our company has been a part of, our town of Edenton has been a part of, and I think regionally in North Carolina, one of the most important community comeback stories and preservation stories that you'll find, and that is the Kadesh A.M.E. Zion Church. I think we've got a great cross-section of speakers today to tell you different aspects of that story. I'm Dawson Tyler, as introduced by Noah. I am the founder and owner of Down East Preservation in Edenton. We are a construction and design outfit that focuses on historic buildings, whether they be residential structures or commercial structures, or in this case, churches. I have joining me Herr, who, on top of being a really good friend, is one of the greatest craftsmen that I've ever met in my entire life. Don is heading our restoration team on the Kadesh windows, both stained glass and colored glass. And Don comes to us through an interesting history. He used artisanship and woodworking as an outlet for sanity when he was in the corporate world for most of his life. And in retirement, has taken on the love of his life, which is woodwork on a full-time basis. And Down East Preservation is incredibly lucky to have him on our team. Sadie Riddick, one of my favorite people in all of Edenton. And I've got quite the bio on Sadie that we've chatted about today prior to this. But Sadie was in the last all-Black graduating class of D.F. Walker in Edenton. She went into nursing after she got out of school. And then, you know, I think when I think of Sadie, I think this was probably very formative of the person that she is. Spent 20 years teaching at D.F. Walker, driving the school bus, and I think continues in her role to kind of teach us all how to have grace in how we approach our lives and go through it. Oh, and she also just pointed out that she wanted me to say that she is also a mom and has lots of really fun grandchildren running around out there, both grandchildren and great-grands. So really, really pleased to have Sadie with us as well. So as part of this presentation, we thought it would be illustrative to take you through some of the kind of seminal moments in the history of Kadesh Church that we've picked out to kind of weave the story together so that you can understand it in the time that we have allotted here together today. So we're going to go from prior to Kadesh existing to where we are in the project here in the beginning of 2024, and then also look into the future plans of what we're going to do on the site, and also field some questions from you. Go ahead, Briley. So the first really important date that comes to mind in the founding of Kadesh is the Sycamore Chapel congregation that, funnily enough, just sits right on the adjoining corner of Oakham Street from the Down East Preservation offices. So it kind of makes it all the more personal that, you know, that is kind of where Kadesh and its congregation and the people that make up that congregation first had their start in our town. If we would. So 26 years after the founding of that congregation at Sycamore Chapel, the Kadesh congregation found themselves on East Gale Street. And we'll keep coming back to East Gale throughout this presentation as really the heart of the Black community in Edenton, and where this really, really amazing demonstration of creativity, building skill, all came together in just a great street of wonderful architecture. And you can go ahead and advance it.
Sorry, I missed the date.
That's all right. So in 1895, prior to the building that we're going to be really focused on, the Kadesh congregation started a school, the Normal and Industrial School, to educate the youth of the congregation, a lot of them being the children of freed slaves in the town. And we'll come back to the connection of freed slaves being builders, freed slaves being the originators of Kadesh, the congregation, the building, and everything that it's become. So in 1897, big year for the Kadesh building. That is when Hannibal Badham Sr. Completed the work on what we now know as Kadesh Church, pictured here. And, you know, as we discussed in the previous slides, you have this congregation that has grown from the small location on the corner of Church and Oakham Street to a very vibrant, large congregation that's not only worshiping on site, but is educating the youth of the congregation in the same location. And the church itself, if you haven't seen it in person, you know, I encourage you all to go. Is an amazing architectural feat. It is, you know, the height of Gothic revival architecture. You know, a lot of the original moldings, a lot of the original material, despite the tragedy that happened to the church, still exists. And luckily, given people like Sadie and others, we have a real rich history of everything that kind of came before, so that, you know, as we put the building back together, we're not just focused on the building, but we're focused on the people that really make the building special. And I'm going to have Sadie talk a little bit more about the building itself, but its place in Edenton really can't be overstated as the heart of the Black community in town, and it's always served that purpose. And it's really so exciting that we can see it coming back to being that in the near future. So if I could, I'm going to get Sadie to come up and just talk a little bit about some of your experiences in the church and specifically how the windows made you feel.
Good afternoon. Can you all see me? I'm short. I'll stand out. I got a big mouth. As a little girl growing up in Kadesh, I was really, really impressed with the windows in Kadesh. I would say by the age of 5 or 6 years old, I was sitting there with my grandmother and suck my thumb, and I would count the windows, but I was really mesmerized with the color, with the pictures that was in the windows. And it was just, like, if you ever, whenever we get it fixed, and you guys come by Kadesh, when everybody in here to come by Kadesh, you will know what I'm talking about. It's like a dream, like you're in a dream world when you sit back and look at those windows. And I'm gonna try to get through this without shedding tears. But it was something that I never thought I would experience when Isabel came. And the first thing I thought about was those windows, because those windows are priceless. They're priceless. And to see the church crumbling and to see some of those windows broken out, it broke my heart, because as time was going on, they will often talk about the windows, like if something was to happen, how could we replace these windows? How could we get the money to pay for these windows? Because they were priceless and they're very, very rare. And so it was like, I would sit back, I don't need a mic. Okay. I would sit back and just watch those windows. And when Isabel came and those windows were broken, it broke my heart. And to see the siding come down, windows broken, it was terrifying. It was really, really terrifying. And we sat around, my sisters, my brothers and I, we sat around and we said, where are we going to get the money to pay for these windows? We haven't seen any windows like this before in our lives. Where are we going to get the money to pay for the church, to put it back together? We were a small congregation, but with the faith of God, we have struggled. And now, with the help of the state, and I give my heart to Robert Heath, because when we got the money, he was the one that made sure that the money was presented to Kadesh so that we can get things done. And to see it done now, I walk in and all I can do is cry, because I never thought that this would happen. And to see, when I went to the workshop to see Mr. Don, and to see how these guys have really made a big effort to get these windows back together, it was just like, wow. And the congregation that went to see them that Sunday, we just could not believe that all of this was happening and things were falling in place again for us. So we thank you, Don. We thank you, Robert. We thank you, Dawson, for a job well done. And I'm just happy. I'm just happy that this group of people have come together to help the congregation of Kadesh to bring this church back together. And there's a lot to be done. It will get done. It is getting done. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sadie. That was great. So a little bit more on the history of Kadesh itself, and it's interesting to be able to have the perspective of this history from kind of both sides of the fence at the same time. Kadesh Church is inexorably tied to Hannibal Badham, its builder. And Hannibal Badham is tied to Hayes Farm, which we are also working on a major restoration on at the same time. And so the Badham family, coming from that farm as enslaved people and coming to East Gale Street, this heart of the Black community, and building all of these structures really kind of completes the circle as I sit back and my team sit back, and we all have these incredible projects going on at the same time in Edenton, to see the interconnections between these great people in our history's lives, and how, for good or for bad, it's all tied together. And it just really makes you proud to think of the accomplishments that Hannibal Badham created, not only just with Kadesh, but if you drive down East Gale Street, if you drive down East Church Street in Edenton, all around you are just wonderful examples of his architectural and building genius, some of which are pictured on the screen in front of you. I think probably just a small number of them. You know, one of the highlights that I also like to talk about when I think of Kadesh is the Hannibal Badham Jr. house. And it's a great story. It's kind of the story of Kadesh itself from a time perspective. It's the ultimate comeback story. So the Hannibal Badham Jr. house sits right across the street from Kadesh. And like the church, had kind of fallen on hard times. And amazingly, the house had owners that went all the way back to the descendants that actually built it, that decided to come to Edenton from Maryland and restore that house. So that lineage for that house, the Hannibal Badham Jr. house, is maintained. And as you see Kadesh rising across the street, you have this wonderful thing going on with this beautiful Queen Anne Victorian, I would say the finest one, definitely in Edenton. I would say the finest one in the area. And it again, it's kind of that whole feeling of what you get when you're on Gale Street now, of everything coming back. And it makes you feel really good as something that you do for a living. It makes you feel really good for the community. It makes you feel really good for folks like Sadie to be a part of our lives now. And it's just a wonderful thing to see everybody come together. And I think that's part of the story of Kadesh and the restoration of the church. Gale Street. Sadie, I wanted to bring you back up. Sorry. To talk a little bit about Gale Street and what Gale Street means to you and to Eden.
I would say back in the day, Gale Street used to be one of the most beautiful streets in Chowan County. To me, it was. The yards were well sculptured. Everything was kept up and in place. But it seems like, when people get older and they die out, sometimes the families just don't want the property anymore, and it goes down. But now, to go on Gale Street, let me back up a little bit. I had a dream that one day that I could block off Gale Street and we would just have a good time, get the community to come and have a great time on Gale Street, East Gale Street. And I'm one of these type of people that I'm a follower. I'm not a leader, but I can follow. I'll follow you, So Dawson came up with the idea that he said, Sadie, let's see if we can get this done. And I'm like, Dawson, you are making my dream come true. And so we got together, we met, we made plans, and that dream came true. Was it in September?
Or maybe October.
October.
Yeah.
Well, we tried for September, I believe.
We did. We had a
And
hurricane
weather,
get involved. Yeah.
So it's in October that we had this. One end of Gale Street, it was lined up with tables and the people came. We had a great time that day, a beautiful time. The weather wasn't that great, but people showed up and showed out. Okay. And I am looking forward to seeing Gale Street back to where it was, yards being sculptured, people having a good time, sitting on their front porches, waving, good evening, good morning, whatever the case might be. And as they go by, they'll stop by and look at Kadesh. Not only look at Kadesh, but to come in on a Sunday morning and worship with us. This is my other dream, that Kadesh will be filled to the max like it used to be. This is my dream. This is my prayer that this will happen. And it is going to happen. It's going to happen. And I believe that every street in Chowan County is going to be like it used to be. All it takes is a lot of working together, pulling together, doing things together. And everybody work as a team. And so far with Gale Street, we're working as a team. We're working as a team. And I thank everybody that has come out and helped us with this Gale Street effort and making my dream come true. I might not live to see all of it, but I pray to God that I'll be able to see some of it. Because Gale Street with Kadesh has always been my heart. And I've been in that church ever since I was a little girl, 4 or 5 years old. And I have worked hard up until this present day. And I'm still working. So Gale Street is my dream, and my dream is going to come true. Thank you.
Don't think you can say it too much better than that. All right, so now we're going to move to what happened to the church, why we're here, where this effort started. So Bradley. Oops. There we go. So some firsthand accounts of, the true impact of Hurricane Isabel on the Kadesh church, the building, but even more importantly, the parishioners that use that building as the center of their lives and worship there, interacted with each other, came up with the mission, took the mission to their families and their friends. Can't be overstated how devastating this hurricane was to that church family. And as Sadie spoke, we were all working very hard to bring everybody back together in that building. And let's go to the next slide. So some more, pictures, just giving you a sense of, what was there before and the present condition of the church. So actually, the present condition of the church is better than what you see in the bottom picture. Community effort, Edenton Construction Company, who needs to be mentioned here, has done a great job of now, stabilizing the building, making sure that it'll stay square well into the future, giving it a strong foundation that it sits on, and really prepping it for what we'll talk about at the end of this presentation, which is kind of what happens in the future, in the coming years. So how did we get there? How did we get to a point where the Edenton Historic Commission, with our Kadesh group within the commission, how Down East Preservation, how Edenton Construction, how everybody came together to be able to bring this heart back to life. It started out in the beginning almost immediately. Sadie and I were chatting about this, with bake sales, creating dinner plates, kind of the boots on the ground approach to raise money, to do anything, to get unmute. All right. Thank you, Noah. So let's go back to the fundraising slide, if we could, brother. The second one. And then the next one. Okay. So in January of 2021, plans started coming together. So, we're taking a second stab at the fundraising approach for the church, and community leaders decided that it was time to get serious about what a scope looks like to bring this wonderful building back into use. And at that time, the decision was made to hire the Maurer architectural firm out of Raleigh to come up with a scope to come up with a plan, to come up with the rule book by which we would approach this large project and bring it back to fruition. Some of the pictures that you can see when the folks at Mauer visited the building, some of the pictures actually after they visited as well. Once the building had been cleaned up, it had a tremendous amount of pigeon population that had been living there and everything that comes with it. We'll go. And when you walk in the structure, as you see in the second picture from your left, it really does look like a tremendous boat. The scissor trusses that make up the ceiling structure are incredibly impressive and were true feats when you think of all of this being accomplished in the late 19th century in the American South. It is an incredibly well thought out, well built, an impressive structure from just a pure building science standpoint. It's amazing to interact with it and get to see it. So after Mauer came in and we started re-looking at fundraising for the space, things really started to click. So the Trust for Sacred Spaces, which is part of the National Trust, came in and donated a substantial fund of money, which they wanted to be earmarked towards a specific project within the church's restoration. And luckily enough for this slideshow, it happens to be the window restoration. So we have a national audience looking in on this restoration project, contributing to it in a very meaningful way, allowing us to go through these beautiful windows and bring them back to the glory that Sadie talked with you about, that she remembered from her youth. So other groups got into the act as well. We received a grant from the North Carolina Humanities, and another good demonstration of the momentum building towards having all the funding that we needed to take on the scope that Mauer had set aside. And then in November of 2021, the final shoe really dropped into place. Representative Ed Goodwin, who represents Edenton in the State House, really came through with a miracle for the church, for this restoration process. The state gave a little over $2 million to the restoration of the building and really gave us a footing with the private fundraising and the other sources of funds that we discussed to take on the building in a holistic sense, from the foundation to the windows to the roof. So that was really the piece that brought it all together. So here I'm going to get Don to come up and speak with you about the window. So this starting early last year is when we started looking at the windows specifically.
Happy New Year. Can everybody hear me in the back?
And Don, we've got people on Zoom.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Dawson asked me to give you a brief overview of the process involved with restoring windows. And, obviously the windows are probably one of the most important architectural features of that building. And I walk into that building, I made a hobby of studying old buildings and furniture throughout my whole life. And the building, even in its current state without the windows, it's breathtaking. I mean, you walk in and you're speechless. I can't imagine what it's gonna look like with these windows back in. Sadie can, but it's gonna be a magnificent restoration and a structure. It's gonna be important to future generations of people, and it's just a magnificent build. But many of the windows, we've taken them out. Some were taken out before we got involved with it and stored in a container in the back. This is the condition that we got them in. Now, this is one of the worst ones. What we try to do with the windows is keep as much of the windows original as possible and restore only what we have to restore. And that's the correct way to restore a window of this quality. So this one happened to be beyond repair. So I made a new one. And the glass that was in this window, this may have only had one or two pieces of glass in, was this. This will eventually go back in here. We have a picture of every window, so we know exactly where the glass went in each of the windows. And my job every day for the last 4 or 5 months, this is a very labor intensive process. We get them in this condition. This has the paint, no paint on it because it just weathered itself off. But generally they have 100+ years of paint on them, and it's lead-based paint. And the only way to budget is with a hot air gun and a putty. And it's very important in that process that you don't destroy the fine detail of the mullions on the window. So from this stage to this stage, which involves stripping it, repairing it, every sash needed repair. And there are over 100 individual sashes in the building. And from this point to the point of having a glass bedded and glazed in this window is 40 man-hours per sash. So you can do the math. It's a very labor-intensive process, and I think I've touched every one of them. We have Sam is in one of these pictures. He's my teammate on it, and he is the only one in the shop that I trust to be able to take the glass out without breaking. And the old glazing is extremely hard. It's very hard to get that glass out without breaking it. And he can do it. So we're in the process. Every Gothic top window like this, at this point right here, was broken. Most of them needed new bottoms, either from rot or they were broken and damaged in a storm. And we've done most of them. There's one that has the glass back in. There's a company in Raleigh, after I restore the frame, that we send the sash to, and they restore this stained glass is an example, close-up example of stained glass. And they restore it. They're a company that has been doing it for 3 generations. They specialize in stained glass. They do retirements at capitals and churches, and that's their business. And there aren't many of them left. So we're very fortunate to have their skill add to this. So that's the process. And people say, well, don't you get tired of doing that many windows? Not really. You know, the worse they are to be, the more everyone's a separate challenge. And it's, I love to get up and do it, but I've done that my whole adult life. I love to create things and make things. And this is to take something from that to this is a very satisfying process. So I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, Don, we are very glad you're a part of it as well. And Riley, let's leave this slide up if we could for a second. You know, one of the things as somebody that's in management, overlooking this project and knowing that I have someone as capable as Don leading it, but one of the things that keeps me up at night is if you think of the 100 window sashes that Don discussed, and you think about each little pane in that sash being a different color, you know, one of the kind of Herculean tasks that underlies this project is documenting everything. And as we're processing these window sash, making sure that we are processing the glass in a way that all those little pieces of glass make it back to where they belong. So in conjunction with our partners in Nightdale. The company is called Stained Glass Associates. And they're wonderful people, and they've been wonderful partners in this project. You know, one of the biggest tasks involved in taking on something like this is just keeping track of it. And, you know, Sadie and the group has seen, you know, a good bit of the reports and everything that goes along with making sure that we get that part of it right. Let's go to the October of 2023. So getting back to the event that Sadie spoke about, and just to take a little bit of a sidebar here, the Edenton Historical Commission decided a few years ago to, you know, to put together an event that basically awards folks in the community or groups in the community that have done a good job at preserving either a building or creating a publication that relates to preservation. And we call that our Bricks and Boards Award. We've had 2 ceremonies now. The last one was the one that Sadie was referencing, where we were able to shut down a large portion of Gale Street and kind of do a community supper. And as Sadie mentioned, it was really a special event because it was something that I think that, you know, Kadesh, the church, has done all along, which is bring people together. And if we can do that as a part of this larger project, you know, I think we're accomplishing even a greater good. So we've got a little video that we're going to play that relates to. And let's go to the next slide. So we touched a bit on this as well. You know, one of the things that we accomplished with the Gale Street event, and we want to continue to accomplish while we're here today, is to get the greater community outside of Down East Preservation, the Historical Commission, the Kadesh Restoration Group involved in this project, because it is such a wonderful story, and there's just a lot that we can all learn from it. So what we're going to continue to do, and you'll see us doing events like this, and like having the Kadesh congregation come through the wood shop after church, is share this story with people, allow them to interact with the restoration project, allow them to interact with the beauty of this church and the architectural components that make it up, and the people that also make it up. So what's to come? And that's an exciting question. So as I mentioned earlier, the church at its current state has been stabilized on the exterior. So Edenton Construction Company, in conjunction with Maurer Architects, has executed that plan that we talked about that was put together. There are new footers, there's a new foundation. The building itself, with the force of the wind, actually took on a little bit of a rack or a lean. All of that has been corrected. The building has been put back structurally to maybe a state even greater than the one in which it was originally built. So that's kind of our starting point of where we are today. And I think as a restoration committee, historic commission, and the various artisans that have been involved in the process so far, there's a lot to be proud of. There's a lot to be proud of what's been done, and the time in which it's been done, and the quality to which it's been done. So the future, we've got an exciting year ahead of us for Kadesh. We have an entire interior that was once very vibrant and beautiful, as you saw in the photographs that we've shown you today, that needs to be restored and put back to that beauty that it once held. That interior needs to be updated with things like bathrooms, janitorial closets, all the things that people don't really think about, but are necessarily very important to the functioning of the building as it moves into its second life. The parsonage, so another smaller miracle that occurred in this past year is the project received further funding that will allow us to take the parsonage on the property, also built by Batum, restore it and use it, I think, kind of for its intended purposes. So church offices, a kitchen, the background stuff that needs to happen at Kadesh that now we don't have to put inside the parsonage itself, but can have outside of the parsonage and keep the parsonage preserved to its original format. One of the things, and Robert, hopefully I'm not getting in trouble by talking about this, but one of the things that's kind of closest to my heart, and it's one of those kind of dreamer things that we're going to have the ability to do, is through photographic evidence that we've found. There used to be about a 30-foot spire that sat on top of that bell tower. We don't know exactly when it was lost to the church, but early in the 20th century, it was blown off, presumably. But we have pictures of this spire. We know how to recreate it. We're assembling the team to recreate it from a roofing and an engineering standpoint. And it's one of those things that with that spire on this church, it's the highest point in Edenton. And it certainly was when the church was built. And, it's just a really cool thing to put back, to restore Kadesh as the tallest structure in the town of Edenton, and really a symbol of the rebirth of the church. And then ultimately, what's to come is what Sadie spoke about, and that's getting everybody back in the building. And that's really what all of us are working towards every day on this project. And it's a really, really special thing to be a part of. It's a really, really special thing to see on a daily basis. I don't know how we are all so lucky to be a part of a project like this. So that concludes our comments on our restoration. Certainly open for any questions you may have. Yes, sir. The origin of the name Kadesh.
The only way that I can tell you about that, it's mentioned in the Bible. I can't tell you what part of the Bible that is mentioned, but Kadesh is mentioned in the Bible.
And so the general translation of the word in the biblical sense means place of refuge. Yes, sir. Great question. So, yep. Okay, so for the people online, the gentleman has asked the origin or potentially the maker of the stained glass windows. So it has been largely reported, and we don't know if it's true or not true, but it's been largely reported that the windows were produced by Tiffany. And again, we don't know if that's true or not. Stained Glass Associates in Nightdale, that's kind of one of the things that we have tasked them with, is to, they've seen a lot more of these come through, obviously, than we have, to track down like windows and further help us kind of nail down who produced them originally. Yes, sir. I have one with the parsonage. Yes, which building is the parsonage? Yes, so the parsonage is right there. And it sits right here with the church. Yeah, right beside it, to the right of it. Thank you. So we have a couple of folks. So the question from online audience is asking, when will the windows be reinstalled? Another thing that could get me in trouble. But the windows will be, the restoration process of the windows will be complete in March, roughly. And I would imagine we will kind of take stock of where we are. Mainly the roof project is kind of the next variable that comes into play that we want to certainly have done before we think about reinstalling windows, because we don't want to damage them once they've spent all this time fixing them. So spring, summer would be the answer to that. Yes, ma'am.
Restoring the pipe working. You see the pipes in one of the pictures.
That is a good question. I don't think we just haven't gotten to that depth for like the furniture inside the church. Not at that point yet. Anybody else? We have anything else online?
Here you go.
So we have one further question is, when do we hope the congregation can return to the building? Another kind of looking in my crystal ball answer, I'd like to think sometime late 2025. Any other questions out there? Just want to say thank you so much for your interest in this project, and go tell all your friends about it. You're going to be hearing more and more news about this wonderful rebirth of this building over the coming months, and y'all were on the front end of learning about it. So thank you for coming out and your thoughtful questions and your attention.